Greetings viewers from Kenya and around the world. I'm your host, Lulu Gitao. Thank you for tuning in to the Global Insights. On today's headlines, human settlement, why Kenya's housing crisis persists. International migration, why more citizens are seeking a future abroad. Multilateralism, Kenya on global stage, diplomatic leader or political pawn. Climate change, climate crisis in Kenya between drought, floods, and policy failures. Live from the Global Insights TV newsroom, I am Lulu Gitao, and we welcome our viewers in Kenya and around the world. We're with you for the next 25 minutes. Thanks for joining us. This is the Global Insights TV. You can join the conversation on our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter at the Global Insights TV and use the hashtag the Global Insights News. Our top story today is on human settlements. Kenya is facing a deepening housing crisis, with millions of urban dwellers living in overcrowded informal settlements due to high costs, poor planning and insufficient government intervention. This government's affordable housing program promised belief, but bureaucratic delays, corruption and high construction costs have slowed progress. Meanwhile, evictions and land disputes leave thousands homeless, while rapid urbanization outpaces infrastructure development, leading to poor sanitation, water shortages, and unsafe living conditions. As the population grows and land prices soar, will Kenya remain trapped in slum conditions with no path to secure and dignified shelter? Join the conversation on our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter at the Global Insights TV and use the hashtag the Global Insights News. TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. Urban evictions and unresolved land disputes are exacerbating the crisis. In many cases, entire communities are displaced to pave the way for development projects without adequate resettlement plans. For instance, mass evictions in Mukuru kwa Jenga in 2021 left thousands homeless with minimal government support or compensation, often occur without proper legal procedures, undermining human rights and social stability. At the same time, Kenya's urban population is growing at an estimated rate of 4.3% per year, one of the fastest in sub-Saharan Africa. Cities like Nairobi and Mombasa are struggling to cope with the demand for housing, transportation, and essential services. The result is a proliferation of informal settlements on marginal landmarks like riverbanks, railway reserves, and flood-prone zones where basic infrastructure like roads, drainage, and waste management is either absent or severely inadequate. This exposes residents to environmental hazards, health risks, and recurring disasters such as floods and fires. The rising cost of land in urban centers, driven by speculative investment and weak regulation, has priced out low and mid-income earners. Private developers focus largely on high-end housing for the wealthy, leaving a significant supply-demand mismatch in the affordable housing segment. With mortgage penetration below 5% and most Kenyans unable to access formal credit, home ownership remains out of reach for the majority. Unless Kenya urgently reforms its housing and urban development policies, strengthens enforcement of land laws, and invests in inclusive infrastructure, the country risks locking millions into a cycle of poverty, displacement, and inequality. The question remains: will Kenya find a path to dignified, secure housing for all, or will it remain trapped in an urban slum reality that undermines its development goals? To help us delve deeper into the urgent issue of Kenya's housing crisis, we're joined by an expert, And with rapid urbanization worsening the situation, can government policies and private sector partnerships provide real solutions? And what urgent reforms are needed to ensure housing is accessible for all?
Yes, government policies and public-private partnerships can provide real solutions if they have inclusive urban planning, and also demonstrate accountability and transparency with financing, and they could also provide public participation by um, by engaging the affected communities. Yes. Then,
Why has the government's affordable housing program failed to meet its targets, and what structural barriers hinder its success?
the government affordable housing program has been facing difficulties that have been hindering it from achieving its targets. Um, Most of that is because of financial constraints, which results into funding gaps. There are also poor coordination, and there is failure in lack of including the needs of local communities.
With millions living in overcrowded informal settlements, what steps are being taken to improve access to clean water, sanitation, and electricity?
Um, to improve the poor living conditions, governments and non-governmental organizations have been putting a major focus on upgrading of slums. Um, there is solar lighting to cater for the electricity, and there is also the construction of shared toilets, as well as putting various water stations to serve the people in the informal settlements.
As land disputes and forced evictions increase, how can authorities ensure fair land allocation while protecting vulnerable communities from displacement?
Evictions can be mitigated by um, land titling systems, and also promoting participatory planning processes that include local communities in land use decisions.
You can join the conversation on our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter at the Global Insights TV, and use the hashtag the Global Insights News. Thank you for tuning in to the Global Insights TV news, and we thank you for your feedback. Mary Wanchiko from Nairobi says, "We've been waiting for these so-called affordable houses for years. They keep launching new ones, but who are they really affordable for? My salary can't even qualify me for their payment plans." Kevin Odhiambo also joins us from Kisumu. "This housing problem is bigger than we think. People in Nyalenda are crammed in tiny houses, paying a lot for poor living conditions. The government should stop demolitions and fix the basic first." Aisha Noor from Mombasa says, "Sanitation in our area is horrible. Raw sewage flows in the open, yet we pay rent. These issues are not just about houses, they're about dignity and human rights." John Kamau tweets from Thika, "I support the affordable housing plan, but let's be honest, the middleman and corrupt officials are killing it. Without transparency, it's just another big idea gone wrong." And lastly, we see Sylvia Cherop viewing from Eldoret saying, "I applied for one of the government houses but never heard back. Later, I saw people with connections got slots. We are tired of being sidelined." In other news, Kenya is witnessing a surge in international migration as more citizens, especially young professionals, seek opportunities abroad due to rising unemployment. Economic instability and political uncertainty, countries like Canada, the US, and Germany have become top destinations, offering better job prospects, quality education, and improved living standards. TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. Many skilled workers, including healthcare professionals, IT specialists, and engineers, are living in search of higher salaries and career growth, raising concerns about brain drain and its long-term impact on Kenya's economy. Irregular migration is also increasing, with desperate individuals risking dangerous journeys through the Middle East and North Africa in hopes of reaching Europe. Despite government efforts to create employment locally, why do many Kenyans still feel that their future lies elsewhere? Is Kenya doing enough to retain its skilled workforce and create opportunities at home, or will the country continue to lose talent to foreign nations? Why is Kenya struggling to provide enough jobs and competitive wages to retain its skilled workforce?
Number one, I think there's a lot of economic instability because there are no jobs, there are no new jobs being created by the government. Secondly, the informal sector is so large, it has really grown so much that it is overtaking actually what even the government is providing. So we also see there's a big population growth, which also impacts a lot on our economy, and lack of infrastructure and places where people are supposed to be working, we don't have enough infrastructure. Yes, thank you.
And with sectors like healthcare and IT experiencing a talent exodus, how will this brain drain impact Kenya's long-term economic growth and development?
Well, yeah, Kenya is definitely going to suffer because the income or the revenue that Kenyans are providing will definitely decrease. Because if they're going outside the country and making money there, we are not going to be able to increase our revenues here in Kenya. The government is not able to collect as much taxes as they should, so the revenue decreases. And another thing is the remittances. There is a lot of remittances, yes, but they don't really impact on the economy. They're really that money is money that is just spent without any good cause, and it never gets into the economy as it should. Yes.
Okay, and many migrants face exploitation, poor working conditions, and legal challenges in foreign countries. Is the government doing enough to protect the rights of its citizens working abroad?
Well, I think all governments try to do their best, but I think Kenyan government should really try and make it upon them that they introduce labor laws and policies that actually make sure that they take care of their citizens, because it is really important to take care of your citizens. Otherwise, if they're going to be abused outside the country, how are you going to help them? They need protection from home. Also, they need to enforce compliance. If anybody wants to go out of the country, they have to make sure they follow the right channels so that at least the government is aware that somebody has traveled abroad, and if there's any problem, the government can easily mitigate. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's me having the worst day ever. But then I saw them and I knew my besties were both going through it, and that's when I had an idea. That's OT. The socials are having him right now. But not for long. Hey, look at him go. Go, bestie. And that's Chico, certified stress girly. And hey, hear me out, goated producer. So we get to the spot, and what do these guys do? And just like that, I was having the best day ever. Sharing a Coke with my faves. Who will you share a Coke with?
Welcome back to the Global Insight News, your trusted source for in-depth analysis, cutting-edge news, and stories shaping our world. I'm your host, Dulu Gitao. Join the conversation on our social media handles on Facebook and Twitter at the Global Insights TV and use the hashtag the Global Insights News. In other news, Kenya's involvement in affairs as interested, from leading peace negotiations in Ethiopia and Sudan to securing non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council. However, critics have argued that while Kenya projects diplomatic strength, it offers and serves the interests of global superpowers rather than asserting independent foreign policy. TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. With growing economic ties to both the East and the West, some questions whether Kenya is leveraging its position strategically or being manipulated by larger geopolitical forces arise. As Kenya continues to play an active role in peacekeeping, trade agreements, and foreign aid negotiations, the key question remains: is the country truly shaping international policy, or is it merely a pawn in the global power struggle? The country's active role in peacekeeping missions, trade negotiations, and global security discussions has positioned it as an influential voice in Africa. However, the nation's economic dependence on foreign aid, trade agreements, and infrastructure investments from global superpowers raises questions about its true independence in global decision-making. While Kenya maintains a balancing act between Western and Eastern alliances, the challenge remains: is it shaping its own foreign policy agenda, or is it being used as a geopolitical pawn in the global power struggle? Peter Mutua, lecturer at Daystar University, joins the conversation. Thank you for joining this important conversation. Does Kenya truly have an independent foreign policy, or is it swayed by the interests of political nations like the US, China, and the European Union?
Well, I would say that they have it on paper, but when it comes to acting it or implementing it, then that's where the rubber meets the road. And we've seen more often than not Kenya being swayed. For example, some very haphazard pronouncements, which are later recanted after 24 hours or 48 hours. And you're asking yourself, did the big guy in the West speak to Kenya? And then they changed their tune. Right? For example, sometimes back during the Kibaki administration, Kenya was wanted to support Iran, but later they changed after about some 2 days or 3 days, they changed their stance. And now they said they don't recognize Iran anymore. And we see more and more and more of this in recent times. So I would say that majorly they are swayed and they don't stick to their policy.
With its involvement in peace negotiations and regional security, is Kenya genuinely driving diplomatic solutions, or is it being used as a facilitator for global superpowers?
Well, it's a very dicey situation, tricky to really say they are playing a role. I guess from what you've seen again, I think they're being used by the superpowers to drive their agenda. For example, what is happening in South Sudan? In Sudan, in the Sudan itself, and what is happening in DRC. The pronouncements that our country has made, the West is quiet. So what does that tell you? That the West is endorsing some positions we've taken, which are quite controversial. So I think they're being used to drive the agenda of an outside power.
Economic dependencies also come into question. How much influence do foreign trade agreements infrastructure loans, and military alliances have over Kenya's decision making.
As the saying goes, you can't bite the finger or the hand that feeds you. So I don't think Kenya has any bargaining power when it comes to these matters, because we can rarely feed ourselves. Our budget is supported, our elections are supported by these organizations, international monetary organizations, and so we cannot say anything contrary to the financiers. So we already lost the bargaining power because we cannot stand on our own. We are not financially independent.
For our fourth story, we delve into climate change. Kenya is on the front line of climate change, experiencing more frequent and extreme weather events that threaten livelihoods, food security, and infrastructure. In recent years, prolonged droughts have devastated agriculture and livestock, leaving millions in arid and semi-arid regions. TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. Intense rainfall and flooding wreak havoc in urban and rural areas, destroying homes, displacing families, and overwhelming weak infrastructure. The unpredictability of weather patterns, worsened by climate change and influenced by global phenomena like El Nino and La Nina, has made it difficult for farmers to plan, threatening food production and the economy. With millions displaced by floods and droughts, does the country have adequate disaster response systems, or are vulnerable communities being left to fend for themselves?
I think Kenya is a disaster in itself. Kenya has no proper disaster mitigation or disaster management system. We've seen that a small city like Nairobi gets flooded and the whole world comes to a stop. Kenya needs to be a bit more prepared for floods, for the vagaries of climate change more than we've done. We've seen families being swept away in parts of semi-arid and arid areas. It just simply shows you that Kenya is not prepared for disaster and the flooding that would come with climate change. We need to do a bit more better than we're doing currently.
And international funding for climate adaptation is available, but is Kenya utilizing these resources effectively, or is bureaucracy and corruption slowing down progress?
So first of all is that the money that is coming from the development community is first not enough. It needs to be at scale, it needs to be adequately resourced, it needs to be timely. So there are shortcomings on the funding side. But also, climate change, because the policies have not been streamlined appropriately in the various development paradigms, you end up therefore that no one really knows where this climate change funding is going to. So theft, corruption, malgovernance have also contributed to the misuse and misappropriation of climate change. Number three, climate change being a phenomenon that not many people can relate or touch or engage with. You can do any program and call it climate change adaptation, and that is where the problem is. Therefore, you have climate change monies running into other programs that they're not supposed to be running into.
And as extreme weather events continue to threaten lives and livelihoods, what bold steps must Kenya take now to break the cycle of climate crisis and build true resilience?
That's an interesting question. So first, Kenya needs to anticipate climate change issues. I'll give you an example. We know for a fact that there's going to be drought in northern Kenya, Marsabit, Isiolo, and those territories. We know for a fact that there's always going to be livestock dying because of the droughts. What Kenya needs to do in terms of building resilience is to anticipate the vagaries of climate change. For example, nothing stops the governments of Isiolo, the government of Marsabit, by building silos, silos for hay silos for their livestock, to give livestock when the drought, because like now it rains, there's a lot of pasture. Absent the rains, there's going to be drought. So if at all, for example, the county governments and the government of Kenya was anticipating the vagaries of climate change by doing the things in terms of building resilience, which should amount to, for example, planning for the catastrophes before they come. And one of those things is, for example, just building hay banks or hay silos in a way that the hay banks can then now be withdrawn when the time for drought comes. Number two is that Kenya needs to plan properly in terms of rainwater harvesting, storage of water. You see, Kenya, in the months of January to April, there's flood water all running into the ocean. 4 months later, there is no more water and it's stored. So in terms of rainwater harvesting and adapting in the particular manner would help us in terms of building resilience by making water and reservoirs available.
Thank you for tuning in to the Global Insights News. Until next time, I've been your host, Ndulu Gitao.
Of course, Blue Band is amazing on toast. Duh. But did you know there's more? Blue Band can do your topping and your frying and stir frying and mixing. Blue Band for stewing, baking sauces, also grilling and toasting. Nice in matoke and ugali and tilapia. That's right. For breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Tasty, crispy. Want a bite? So yummy every time with omega-3 and omega-6 vitamins all for free. We use it anytime with healthy G. I'll be cooking up a song for my family.